of the worker exploitation that took place in this film, Mickey definitely experiences the worst of it. And as Gabe got into, Mickey 17 shows us a very depressing but hauntingly realistic future in which the planet is dying. We got 4 years on this. But not till everything explodes, but till like we just can't like really fix it super easily. It's gonna take a really long time to reverse the damage that's taken place. And the Trump-Elon hybrid of a man with his cult-like followers leading this exhibition to space. So it's worker exploitation and space capitalism. So really like the two worst things combining into one.
It's like Alien.
Yeah, like they aim to find a new planet for humanity to live on since Earth is a bummer. Like it's no longer a viable option. It's really not safe. And this is, as Gabe just mentioned, Alien is another example of something we've covered that's very similar to this, and that's like a big company or a politician doing shady stuff in space. The Expanse also covers this. We've had a lot of shows or movies that kind of touch these themes, but I do think Mickey 17 stands alone, like in the sense that like it did do something different. Like usually we see robots or we see just like regular people or like, you know, or aliens, and like this was like clones and like the ethical implications of that, but also like a very, I feel like even in The Expanse, like you didn't witness as much of like the leadership and the poverty that was taking place even in the belt. Like you saw the poverty, but not so much like the people who were being the absolute worst over there in the belt. Like they were stranded, they couldn't go anywhere, but like you didn't have like a Trump-esque man yelling nonsensical things at them, kind of gaslighting you into thinking everything is great. So predictably capitalism sucks, even in the vast abyss of space. I don't think it's a future that Octavia Butler envisioned when they hoped for us to take flight to the stars.
No. No.
If anything, they were like, abandon your hierarchies, and this guy's like, take the hierarchies to space. And Mickey as an expendable acts as an example of how quickly, as Gabe said, humanity can be socialized into dehumanizing a person. What is fun about Mickey 17, though, is that we already know life is expendable to those in power. But like we see this dramatized version of this problem through the use of cloning, and also like the comedy of the film really helps balance. Like I will say, like in my empathy and mytism, I was like, oh, I'm still sad even when the funny stuff's happening. But like it was definitely like it still hit in terms of like lightening it a little bit, because otherwise it would just be like really hard to get through. You have to like entertain a little bit when you're teaching something so sad. Just to like kind of
give us some levity.
Yeah, you gotta give someone like enough hope to want to do something about it, instead of like, for example, Don't Look Up, where you're just kind of really depressed at the end with not really knowing what to do with that. Like you get like a kind of, even if it's like tied up in a way that like maybe you weren't satisfied with it, like some people were saying they didn't love the ending, having a hopeful ending in a time where, like, if we think of Squid Games, where it ended in the current form, we don't have the new season yet, but like it ended so sad that like I needed days to emotionally recover from that season of Squid Games. I think we need some happy endings, even if they're a little like unrealistic or like to what we're dealing with right now, because we need to be able to envision a future where that isn't a thing anymore and we did stop it and it doesn't exist, because otherwise we can't dream that up for ourselves. So I think the ending, as with the critiques, like it was purposeful, and like we kind of needed that right now. Like I think if it ended depressing, I really wouldn't have been able to like go about my week.
Well, it was also important like to show the strength of Mickey and Nasha in their goodness being winners, because what does it say if all these horrible things happened and then Mickey and Nasha don't win? It says like it doesn't matter if you're a good person. Like it literally does the opposite of what Bong Joon-ho was aspiring to do. So I get it could be a little cheesy, but that's on purpose, like you're saying, like so we can envision a future in that, and so that we can put that power and the importance of being a good person, like as a heroic act worthy of like surviving.
Yeah, and that like they'll win. Yeah. So when the white man can't exploit Earth any further, they will flee accountability in their crimes amongst the stars. Predictably, Elon Musk wants to be that white man. So bad. As Gabe mentions, Musk has his own plan to colonize Mars via SpaceX. And between Starlink satellites falling out of the sky or Tesla cars breaking apart piece by piece on the road, there is very little optimism to be had for a Mickey 17 future. If he's the guy that Trump takes with him to space, and he's the one building it will quickly turn submersible. Like, none of the regulations are being maintained.
Let's do it tomorrow.
And it's like, that's super real. But all jokes aside, there'll be a lot of innocent people who go and who aren't even just like MAGA people. Like they're still human, even though they're crazy. Like,
yes, no, for sure.
It's like they're manipulated by this man, and yes, they deserve Earth consequences, but maybe not space consequences. I don't know,
or underwater consequences.
Yeah, it's just like, let their farms fail, but like we don't gotta like send them to space to explode, you know. Or I don't know. Some people might argue that they do, and that's fine. But like, it's just like there's gonna be innocent people who go too, and those people are the ones who are gonna be harmed by these ridiculous men driving their phallic planes into the sky. So like they just like it's.
Ew.
I do want them to go. Yeah. I just want them to take as few people with them as possible.
Like the submersible, minus the boy who was in there. Yeah. Like everybody else, sure.
Yeah. So it's
just put
like,
those two. And Jeff Bezos. Sorry, I'm manifesting.
Yeah, let Star Trek's plot line come to fruition, but without like
without nuclear war. Yeah, for sure.
But all that's to say is they want to go to space so bad because they know that everything they're doing to the planet is going to blow up in their face. And where else can they flee accountability than the stars, especially after they decimate the planet and what little is left of it. So I'm not saying we shouldn't research space or even travel to space more. Like, we need to know what's up there. I get it. NASA's cool. I just think it shouldn't be at the cost of what little planet we have left. Like, to launch the rockets that he, at the rate that he wants to, would like immensely damage the already damaged ozone layer, the technology he would have to find to make the rockets and make them able to fly and be transported at the rate that he has them pitched in his like SpaceX.com pitch of Mars colonization. Is the resources he would have to mine would exacerbate the already huge climate problems, as well as just damage the ozone layer and come at the cost of like human
like lives. The Congo currently.
It'd be like that, but like even more and even worse, because the rate at which he's trying to make space capitalism and space colonization happen is not sustainable. And there's also a ton, if you want to just be bummed, there's a lot of articles about space capitalism and space colonization, and people like really excited about that, and it's really gross. And
it's like sorry. Well, I was just gonna say, it's like, you know, even now, like even with, if you remove the like huge distance between like us and the space capitalism effects, like that is a very obvious, like them leaving the planet that they destroyed, you know, that's a very obvious example of them like fleeing responsibility. But even now, like today, that version is that, you know, they mine and they destroy these you know, vulnerable places, generally populated by people of color, like the Congo. They exploit them and damage their environment, and then that very place is the one that's plagued by the climate change things. Like those are the ones who are being plagued by the natural disasters and by like the bad drinking water and have like chemical, like Argentina with their intense chemicals, like all of those things. Like those people who are already exploited and harmed are then further harmed by the actions, like the reaction of the earth, like fighting back. So like that's just a smaller version that's it's happening right now of the larger issue that people like make science fiction. Right? It's like currently the earth hurts and the people here are hurting, and the people who did the hurting are not being held accountable.
Yeah. And they don't plan to be. Like, there's a lot of rich people who have their eyes on the stars. Like, they want to go to space. They plan to exploit us as much as possible while they're still here in order to get there. And there's a lot of articles about it. We have them linked in the blog. It's depressing. I recommend checking them out, just so you know what's going on. But it's definitely gross because like they sound so excited about it. They're pitching it like it's the next railroad, you know?
Yeah.
They're like so hype about exploiting all this labor and all these people to send themselves to space to make a planet on Mars that like, why I don't get why they think that's going to be good. Like, why not try to fix what's here? Why do you need to go to Mars? Answer that question. You know, climate change.
What's up there?
There's a reason you want to go there, and could you say that out loud? Maybe.
Yes.
For everyone in the room to hear. Yeah.
I also recommend when you're reading those to also maybe read It's Not That Radical by Michaela Loach. It is also really depressing because to read currently, just because a lot of what she's saying is like, you know, we have to make the changes now and they're really big. But she does a good job of like at least instilling a little bit of hope and resources and action, and kind of, you know, breaking down some of those barriers and better understanding what the climate crisis is. So I do recommend that in addition to reading all of the
you need
articles.
a next step that's hopeful or like practical and gives you like next steps of things to do. So absolutely. And if you want to envision a future where we get taken to space against our will, but we abandon all of our hierarchical tendencies and like get a new earth, but it's like not horrible and they rebuild the old earth. Dawn by Octavia Butler, I highly recommend. It's pretty helpful.
The Lilith Brood series.
Yeah, the Lilith Brood series. It's science fiction that is I really enjoyed. It is a little depressing. They have depressing stuff in there too. It was before any of this was envisioned, but it's also very good for science fiction. But my next section is worker isolation and the reason for one expendable. So for me, the use of one expendable, like instead there wasn't like a group, there wasn't a line, there wasn't a bunch of people who signed up. That felt super intentional. Ignoring the possibility of the multiples for a second, like it felt purposeful to have Mickey as the only one continuing to be cloned. While we can look at cloning and downloadable consciousness as a pathway to live forever in a new flesh prison, something that the rich would usually covet, I was initially like surprised that they would use this like technology on this innocent man who like has little power or status, like, but then I remembered, oh, you got to test it first, and he is the animal with which that they've decided does not have life worth preserving and is going to be expendable to
he lives forever, he works forever.
Yeah, and then it gives them a way to test it so that they can clone themselves safely, which I guess you kind of get as like that flashback at the end that like wasn't real but maybe was.
The like dream.
But yeah, living forever has long been the goal of the hyper wealthy. But after thinking about it for a minute, it makes sense as a means of worker exploitation and also as a representation of the hyper wealthy using lower class populations as experiments for their betterment. If anything, the most unrealistic piece of this picture was that Mickey was a white man, as Gabe said, since historically that has not been the case. And at first, I also questioned the fact that more people weren't signing up for this kind of position, aside from maybe that they had learned better from the world than to trust a company in this way. And like only a white man would be brave enough to think the government wouldn't do that. But yeah, it was just, I was like, wow, this is really interesting. I was like, oh, maybe that's not right. And then I was like, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, that actually makes a lot of sense. This feels very intentional. But the fact there was only one Mickey was important because the selection of Mickey and his solitude isolated Mickey so entirely that he could not have anyone relate to him, and he could therefore not relate to many of the other people on the ship. And therefore would be easier to dehumanize and exploit. There is a lot of literature around the idea of isolation as a tool for oppression, and it felt very intentional to me that there was only one slot available for the expendable position, in that it made it so that no one would be able to empathize with Mickey entirely, because they did not experience what he did. He was all by himself. And it made it so it was easier to dehumanize and devalue each of his 18 lives. And it also felt intentional that his love interest was a Black woman, arguably the only other human, like historically, that might know what Mickey is going through in this dystopian hellscape of late stage space capitalism. So worker exploitation extends past the isolation of a person from the means of production. Essentially, like, it's not just you don't know what you're making by making wrenches or whatever, or like screws. It's also that they don't want us to talk to each other. They want us to be isolated from each other, because that benefits the oppressors. So that's why places will tell you can't unionize, don't discuss your salaries with your coworkers, don't become friends with your coworkers, even though that's like 90% of your day. You know what I mean? Like, don't find friends or love in the workplace, because like, even though that's like your entire life, you don't get to be home ever, because you're working like 8 hours a day, whatever, it's fine. But the goal of this is to keep us from talking to each other, because together we have power. And the difference is, with Mickey 17, is that this story is in literal space. The stakes in space are even higher than on land, because at least on land, the boss couldn't stop feeding you the gray goop or melt you in the incinerator when you stopped listening to him. Or if you did something he didn't like. There was a lot scarier consequences, I feel like, in space, which made it like, I get why he set it in space for that reason, because it like really upped the stakes, like kind of how Snowpiercer upped the stakes, because we're in you can only be in the train, you can only be in the ship, like you could get lifted, like you get shot out in the airlift or whatever. What is it called? Airlock, thank you. Like you could just get sent to space. There's no escape. So it's even scarier to have the idea of mutiny or revolution in that kind of environment, because it's not really safe to fight either. If you break the ship, what happens to you? You're stranded. So I feel like it was a lot easier to exploit that population, but it really like upped the stakes of what we would see on land. On land, they can take away your job, your livelihood. They can bust unions and funnel money into politicians' pockets to make working conditions worse. But they can't kill you.
Like overtly.
Yeah. Unless you try to talk about their wrongdoings in court after the fact. And all that's to say that by placing our population in space, you made them even more vulnerable. And Mickey was the essential piece of the space exploitation puzzle, because even though everyone else was also being exploited in space within the film, by making someone who is exploited worse, it created a degree of separation that made those who were not continuously murdered over and over again feel like they mattered more. Had some sort of grander purpose. At least their lives were not as bad as Mickey.
You always need someone below you.
Yeah, they had to be better than Mickey. Yeah, to validate their lack of food they were receiving, as well as the lack of the freedom that they had in their day-to-day lives. They were told they had to count calories, refrain from sex and connection. Like, that's a lot of stuff that, like, you tell enough people that they're not going to be happy with you. But at least they weren't Mickey, so they needed him to exist as that. And this separation was intentional from an empathy standpoint, but also from it could be much worse standpoint. The people on the ship were desensitized to Mickey's death and treat him less than. Mimicking, like, the direction of their leader, we see, like, Commander Marshall and Jaffa time and time again show how little people on the ship matter to them. Like in the dinner scene honoring Mickey and the soldier. And it really just shows how like monstrous they were and how little they cared about people. And really that was what like sent the parallel to like day-to-day life even more. Because it's like, we see that Commander Marshall only views women as future breeders and wombs for the next generation of human. and are otherwise invaluable. He didn't want her to be a soldier.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted her to have kids, probably his kids, because he was gross, much like our Republican administration. And simultaneously, it also shows that she views Mickey's life with less value than a literal rug on the ground of the ship, much like how rich people will value the latest tech, clothing, or home goods above the human lives it takes to create them. In the most American way possible, there's also someone who lives they value even less, which is the native population of the planet they have literally invaded, reduced to the pursuit of sauce, which felt like a nod to the fact Europe colonized the entire world for spices, tea, and seasoning, entirely ignoring the suffering and loss of lives that came at the cost of that. So,
yeah, they even they keep calling them aliens, and Nasha's like, "We're the aliens, you idiots!"
Yeah,
like we're literally not from here.
Yeah,
we showed up on their land and started murdering them. Yeah. Sound familiar? Anyway,
not when you're not taught history, it doesn't. Oof. But I'll talk a little bit about cloning, and then we can be done. But like, there's a lot of cloning that's been taking place, and I didn't even know about it, so that was stressful. So cloning is already beginning to be possible. We have clones at animals pretty successfully at this point, and often apparently inside there's an article called "Inside the Creepy, Surprisingly Routine Business of Animal Cloning on the Atlantic" by Bianca Basker. They impact the cloning of carcasses for the purpose of making more meat, using the cells of high quality animal carcasses to create new living ones, basically to be harvested by like the meat industry. Through this process,
covered that in our Margaret Atwood.
Oh, we did?
Episode.
Hilarious. Look at me not have a memory. Thank you, Gabe. It's like, that's new to me. And I was like, we already talked about it before. It's so
from the Mad Adam trilogy.
Oh, yeah. But through this process, they successfully cloned living cows. And cloning has barely been happening since 1996 with Dolly the sheep.
Jeez.
Yeah. Dolly lived until 2003, but it was found that the cloned sheep aged prematurely. There was more than one clone, and both of them started aging quicker than the naturally born sheep. And essentially, we're also experiencing a higher rate of tumor growth. So both sheep, one died from tumors growing in their lungs, and the other was put to sleep once they found there were tumors in her lungs, which was Dolly. Yeah, there's also a push for legislation to criminalize the cloning of humans. It's already, most countries have already outlawed human cloning for obvious ethical reasons. But animal cloning is widely unrestricted. We could be eating and drinking products from cloned animals today, as it is approved from the FDA to do so. There's also, yeah. It's gross. And I mean, like, I don't know. It's gross. I saw also there's like this thing where you can like clone a chicken nugget, but without like an actual chicken. And I was like, oh, chicken nuggets are almost ruined for me, maybe forever. That's disgusting. I hate how that looks. I don't want to eat that.
That's literally in Margaret Atwood's Mad Adam. They have these like chicken things that are just made up of like thighs or breasts or whatever, and they're just like, they're alive because they need to be, but they're like not. They like, don't have any sentience really, but they just make these little nugs people or nug beings. Yeah. And the reason, like what you're saying, like 1996, everything in that book and in her books are all stem from reality, from history. Like nothing is actually far-fetched. It's just like, okay, we take that and we, look ahead the same way Octavia Butler did. Like they're not they're not predicting the future, they're just looking at the past.
Yeah, they're just looking at the pattern
signs.
Recognition.
Yeah.
They're looking around and they're like, ooh, that seems like that could be turned into this pretty easily, actually. Yeah, but like there's a decent amount of cloning taking place. It is illegal in most places for it to be done to humans. It's not illegal in the US yet, apparently. But in some states it is, but like others it's not.
So like as absurd and silly and fantastical a movie as Mickey 17 is, it's not really that crazy. Like even like the science, like you're saying, not that crazy.
They're trying to go to space in like the next 10 years. They're trying to do Mickey 17 in the next 10 years. Like literally, like they're trying to leave the planet. It was like a rocket every day or some shit. Like it was crazy. I was like, you're just gonna destroy the ozone layer and rot our planet from the inside. Like,
and for what?
Just go by yourself. Like leave everyone else here.
Yeah, just go. Just take it right now with your little, like, your game controller, whatever. And take all your drugs. Just go up to space. Leave us alone. What is on Mars? Just cause. Like, he just likes to do things for the lulz. And he doesn't understand that the lulz for him equal, like, the death of a lot of people.
Yeah.
And, like, the severe oppression of a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know.
And like, his reasoning... is that it's closer to the sun and the sun's gonna like die soon, or it's further from the sun, it's further from the sun, but the sun's gonna like get stronger and burn too hot for Earth to continue to exist, and then it'll be warm enough on Mars, and then we can grow plants on Mars. And it was like a whole thing, and I was like, okay, sir, like I get it. Like, want to go space. It's fine. I'm not dissing space. I think space is interesting as heck. I want to know what's going on there. Yeah. I never felt like I was from here. I feel like an alien. It's fine. Yeah. I get it. Go space.
But we don't want it to be like an evasive action.
Yeah.
We want it to be like a fun exploration. Like Octavia Butler saying, like, reach for the stars kind of thing. Like, that's because we've done all the exploring and, you know, fixing here on Earth, and now we're going to go and we're going to just do that better out there. It's not, oh, we've messed this up so much, that's it.
Yeah.
It's like, look at what a good job we did. Now to do another one. Another good job.
We saved the world. Or aliens said we did such a bad job, but they fixed it.
Yes.
They fixed it instead of us.
We go to space and we have a replicator. Yeah. And nobody's hungry. Guess what? Nobody has to be hungry.
Yeah, we can all just take care of each other and have cool alien friends.
We have enough food for everyone. Scarcity is a myth. Anyway, the other thing I want to say, when you're talking about worker isolation, and not just like the physical worker isolation, but when we're also talking about that isolation from the work we do to the results, that's also reflected in the fact that Mickey had no idea that they were using that chemical. They were like testing the chemical weapon on him. He didn't know. He was just like, oh, you're just killing me to save everyone. Like, there was at the very least, he thought he was doing something good. He was the young gardener boy, being, you know, infected with cowpox, but little did he know it wasn't. It was mustard gas, you know, like. Anyway.
Yeah, like he at least thought, like, oh, my sacrifice was worth it.
Yeah.
And it was not.
So it was, again, that worker isolation thing. And we have a lot of episodes about that. Possessor is one of the good ones for that. Yeah. But I hope that this maybe inspired you to give it a shot. I know, again, that people have mixed ideas and it is not the best of the Bong Joon-ho. I think it's just like, again, I have a hard time rating things sometimes because it's just different. And I think like it is absolutely way more realistic than Snowpiercer. So on that level, I'm like, this seems more realistic. Yeah. And also Host is a little wacky, but like this one felt very real and felt like a genuine reaction and critique of our current circumstances. And even before like the series that we're in now, like the horrors that be came to be, like he was kind of calling out things that we were already experiencing. So I appreciate that it exists, and I hope, you know, Bong Joon-ho keeps doing what he does, because he does amazing work. And I say give it a shot, give it a try. It's 2 hours, you can do it. Especially if you sat through 3 hours of Robert Pattinson's Batman, you can handle 2 hours of Robert Pattinson's Mickey, because it's adorable. Yeah. He's a sweetheart. If that's how Edward was in Twilight, I'd be Team Edward. But alas, he was not. He was a weirdo.
He was a little red flag walking around.
He was a lot of red flags. Yeah, sparkling like a little red flag gem. Ruby of a vampire. Yeah. Awesome. So that was our Horrors of Society series. do let us know what you think about Mickey 17, and if we do, and we will, another Horrors of Society in the future, what you would like to see, maybe some books to read. Now I want to read Mickey 7.
Yeah, I saw it at Barnes & Noble the other day, and I was like, oh, look at that. Kismet. Like, I witnessed things that are...
There's a book I was going to review for Severance, but it also works for this, called The Employees, and it's like a sci-fi kind of dystopian thing that's also like this weird like disconnect from being a person. And like, you know, it was a trippy book. But highly recommend. Also, don't get married.
Let your kids.
They'll turn them into sauce. What a freak. What a little freak.